Okay, so I just went live with the webinar, but we're still gonna give there's 12 people I see already on the call, but I like to give it a minute and let people kind of trickle in. I do know we're supposed to have another panelist, Nicole, but I do know she's supposed to pick up her son and be on the road. So if she comes in, great. If not, we'll wing it with the three of us.
Well, rock and roll.
So yeah, we'll rock and roll either way. The show must go on. So with that being said, as people trickle in, I would love, to know, there's a chat box to know where you're from. What do you do in the industry? Maybe you're just learning and want to be part of a woman-based community and learn, or maybe you're a lender, a broker, a builder. We just like to get some insight on you so we know we're catering to, who we're speaking to, and truly, this webinar is for you guys. So yes, we have Cayenne and China, and we're going to jump into them and get a little background on them. But this is really catered to you. So if you have questions, don't feel like you're interrupting. The best webinars are the webinars that have a lot of questions and they're free flowing and they're kind of getting everyone's different perspectives. Um, so feel free to drop in the chat everything and introduce yourselves. But with that being said, we will jump into our two panelists and start this off with getting a little background on them. So Kyan, do you mind introducing yourself and starting this off?
Absolutely not. But first of all, thank you for Jenny inviting us to join this panel. My name is Kayan. I'm the business development manager at Cap Funding. We are a private money lender on both DSCR and the RTL loans, and we also a broker lender on both SBA loan and commercial real estate loan as well. Nice meeting everyone here.
Kyan, where are you based out of?
We are based off New York. Our headquarters is in New York, Long Island.
Great. China, do you want to go off and introduce yourself?
Absolutely, yes. So my name is China Marie. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I moved to Houston, Texas about 3 years ago to only purchase property here, but to become a developer and a builder. So I'm currently building a luxury duplex. And right now we are already sold about 7 weeks into the project. So super excited to be moving to the next project as I go along this journey. I'm also a licensed agent. So being able to do both is really something I feel like has allowed me to excel really quickly in this business of development building, but also as an agent. So I'm really grateful to be here and share whatever I can to help your journey, be seamless as well.
I love it. I love it. So we got two powerful women as our panelists, but also want to shout out to our audience. So there's some people checking in now. Esteban from Hollywood, Florida, who's a loan officer. We got Michelle in Seattle, Washington. I think I saw Michelle is with Rain City Capital now, which is exciting. Fred is a big mentor of mine. And then Sydney, of course, our co-founder of SheFunds and CEO of Simple Lending. Deanna, who's a broker with us as well. Shout out to you for being on. Mariana, I know, is now at National Title. She is my fave for title services. So make sure you reach out to her. And then we got my good old Moises, coming in on the SheFunds. I gotta love a man that, even though it says SheFunds, they're just chiming in anyway. Respect to that. Okay, yeah, guys, keep feeling free to drop your questions. I think Nicole has joined us. Yes, so I know Nicole is on the road and she's driving. But Nicole, do you mind kind of just, introducing yourself to the audience? We could always loop back whenever you're ready. Whenever you're I know she just joined, so maybe having technical difficulties as well. Okay, Nicole dropped in the chat. She's billed with Cruise. She's a developer in Central New Jersey, and she specializes in ground up construction. Cool. So I know Nicole's on the road, but she does work with a massive developer and has a lot of insights in ground up construction mastery. So hopefully she'll be able to share some insights as she's driving around town. But yeah, I will kick it off and go through, you know, our webinar, which is ground up construction. So the first slide says why ground up and what does it require? So, we have Cayenne and China, feel free to chime in. But why ground up? Like, China, why when you were deciding to do your own project, like why ground up and not maybe a fix and flip?
Yes, I did ground up, mainly because I was gonna do a fix and flip, but there's just so many surprises that come along with it, and I didn't want any surprises, right? I didn't want to tear a wall open and see that I'm down in my profit. And when you build new construction, whether that's multifamily or single family, you know exactly what to expect throughout the duration of the project, right? So you know exactly what your land cost is going to be. I use a turnkey builder, so that meaning that price does not change. So if it's 350, it's everything including surveys, permits, material, labor, everything down to the keys. So being able to have that all-in price was really important for me, especially as a new developer and as a new investor. I really wanted to be able to have that security, not having the price inflate on me out of nowhere. And also being able to sell it myself, right? Knowing that I have the experience in multifamily, that control as well of how well I market it. And, it just kind of was a home run for me. So new construction, I feel like also a lot of buyers want nowadays because it does come with all the bells and whistles that and closing costs fully being paid primarily that a lot of resale doesn't come with. So I don't see as much resale selling as new construction.
Yeah, love that. Some of our PowerPoint uh marks is that you have more control, there's better margins and the new construction demand, right? We are technically still in a housing shortage, so you know that when you build something that it's needed, a family needs to live there.
Yeah.
Cayenne, why ground up? Why is that something you guys are offering as a product right now?
Yeah. So on a lender perspective, of course, we're seeing more like profit from like a ground up construction, and it gives like the builder more flexibility, more creativity on building a brand new like construction. They can either like keep it for the long term for the cash flow, or they can sell it and turn it over and make a margin on top of it. So that's a lot of way that like creating that margin like from the ground up construction. And on our standpoint, we love to fund like ground up construction because like absolutely we see the profit there.
Yeah, for sure. Nicole, we're just on the question of why ground up. So feel free to chime in as to why your team focuses on ground up and maybe not a typical fix and flip.
Absolutely. Hey guys, how are you? And thank you for having me. I apologize. I have these glasses on. I got LASIK done, so I can't have the sun in my eyes. But we specialize in ground up new construction, and this is the we've kind of chosen the ability to one evaluate land and figure out how to create that value. When you're doing a fix and flip, the margins are a little tighter. Now we have broadened our scope and we started buying existing ranches that then we could build up. But with new construction in the area we're in, there's so much demand for high-end luxury homes. And we're able to create that value where we say our comps and the other homes that builders are building are really builder grade. So we're going in, we're buying land, we're building homes with all the features that we think someone would put into a custom home, and we're offering it as a spec build. Um, and again, the margins are great. We work with a lot of lenders, but we like the ground up just because of the market we're in and creating that value.
Love it. Yeah. So I think the keys for ground up is the better margins and more control. Like I always hear people state like I have all my plans and I could build it to the plan and fix and flip. All these things could go wrong. Like someone could knock down a wall and then realize they have to really just rewire the whole house. Sticking to your plan, it sounds like ground up will be the better scale. And then you have a clear exit, whether you're a build to rent or a build to sell.
Just to add to
Okay,
that,
so
so
moving on,
moving
finding the right up. Yeah,
gonna add to that for fix and flips, there's a lot of unknowns. A lot of times you have to close super quick with a fix and flip, and you don't know what's behind those walls when you open it. So when you go get a construction loan, let's say you have 200K in construction loan to fix and flip that property, you could open those walls and now your budget has drastically changed. Whereas with ground up, as long as you have the experience, you could make sure that you have the right construction loan to protect you.
yeah. And that is key, exactly what you said, is as long as you have the experience. Because it is something at least, I know Kyan could probably speak to as well. On the lender perspective, will want to see some sort of track record. So that's kind of why some lenders want you to
Mhm.
start with a fix and flip and then maybe increase your rehab budget. Maybe you went from a cosmetic kind of rehab and then you did a gut renovation, and then from there you did a ground up. So it's kind of like going from a level perspective.
Yeah,
uh
absolutely. Experience is one of the most important like factor when we fund on like a ground up construction project. So we often divided those like borrower into like three different tier. Tier one is the best borrower that we love them. They have experience. They have all this planning. We have all this structured out, so it's easier to work with. But of course, we also fund on like people that with like less experience. Of course, like different requirement it change.
Awesome. Okay, so moving on to finding the right opportunity. I'm sure Nicole and China could speak to this more. But location, fundamentals, and the lot characteristics, comp analysis, running the red flags to avoid, deal plan essentials, the purchase price, construction budget, ARV, and timeline. As you know, lenders like to lend on loan to cost. So making sure your purchase price and the rehab that you're putting into it can still be profitable with the ARV tied into that. So yeah, maybe Nicole or China, you could speak to finding the right opportunity.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely more like location for sure, especially with duplexes. And it being a luxury duplex, I really wanted to be in somewhere that I know sells fast, multifamily, where you can house hack it. A lot of people that are buying duplexes are looking to live in one side and rent out the other, with the $0 down program that's also offered here in Houston. So being able to have the location, for example, in Sunnyside, an off market lot you can get for $100,000 or less, right, from a wholesaler, and then on market, you're looking at about that 105 to 120 for a lot. So, getting your lot price is the most important. Same as when you fix and flip, whatever you get the property for is like your foundation for anything, right? So, being able to get a property under market value is so important. Even if there is a house on it, sometimes when there is a small, like ugly tear down house on it, it's better because you'll be able to already have the utilities implemented in the land. So being able to, in addition to that, finding the right lot, just because it's a cheap lot doesn't mean that it's a great lot, right? So being able to get a survey on the land is really important so that there's no gas lines or water lines or easements or setbacks on that land before you purchase it is really, really important. And then as well, I getting a builder, right? Unless you are going to be the builder on it. Um, Having that builder that has the experience and can vet that lot ahead of time and making sure that you know what your turnkey price is going to be for material, labor, surveys, and permits, in addition to adding that to whatever your lot cost is going to be, right? And then, of course, always doing your market analysis for what you're going to sell it for. That way you can have an average of what you'll be expected to pay outside of realtor fees, title fees, and what it costs to actually build this property.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, China.
Of course.
Nicole, anything with red flags to avoid that you could share with the audience?
Absolutely. So I do all of our land acquisitions and entitlements, and here in New Jersey specifically, and I know other towns and cities as well and states deal with this, but some things that you should be looking at. The first thing I do when I'm looking at a land opportunity is I look for a survey. I want to know the size of the lot and I look at the zoning. the zoning is going to dictate what's allowed there. Is it agricultural use? Is it cluster zone? Can I do multifamily, single family? What size lots do I need? We do a lot of large subdivisions. So we do 6 lot, 8 lot, 13 lot subdivisions. And when we're looking at a piece of property, you want to one, see the size of the property, the zone it's in. Then you want to start looking at the environmental concerns. So does it have wetlands? You can't build on wetlands. How much does that take up on the property? Does it have water and sewer, or is it going to be septic and well? What's the soil like? Can I get basements? Can I do walkout basements? That's going to affect the value. How much are they asking, and how much is it going to cost me to get approvals? How long are approvals going to take? Am I going to get zoning approvals or planning? Planning means it's as of right, right? You're building what you do there. Zoning means maybe you're asking for some relief, like the lot sizes, the density, and the environmental concerns, right? Is there any environmental issues, the history of the site? What are we doing there? So there's a lot of red flags to look at, and a lot of sites that come to us, we pass on it instantly. First thing I'm always looking at is what size homes can I build on it? What are they going to sell for? And how much are they asking the land for? If I can't back into it, it's not going to work, right? So that's number one. And what can I do there? And how long is the process going to take me? A lot of subdivisions here in New Jersey take at least 2 years. I'm not sure how it is in Texas. I know you guys are probably quicker than us. But it takes
Yeah,
me
a
two
little bit.
years. It takes me 2 years just to even start
Wild.
possibly getting a shovel in the ground. So I would say you always want to understand the zoning, the environmental constraints, and always looking at what are they going to sell for compared to what you're buying it for. And understanding construction as a developer is really important because you're going to speak to real estate agents. They're just going to sell you the land, right? They don't care if you're profitable or not. And when I go to my lender wants to make sure that I understand the site work costs, the permitting costs, the carrying costs. If it's 2 years to build the project, am I getting 12 months of interest reserve, or am I paying out of pocket in interest? The lender's going to look at that and they're going to say, do you have the capital required to drag this project along 2 years? And if there's issues, are you guys capital capable to do this project? So those are just from a high level. I can always get granular, but from a high level, those are some things we look at.
Yeah, and just to chime in on that, like knowing the timeline for the subdivision and knowing the timeline of what your, city usually takes to approve permits and knowing all that is just so key when you're becoming a builder because, you don't want to be in a high interest ground up construction mortgage, paying on, your loan and being stalled.
Yeah.
So I have a very big developer builder here, and unfortunately, I'm just seeing him kind of run into these overextended, extend this mortgage, extend that, and he's just not finishing his builds. But then it affects him later in the line because he's holding all this bridge, paper, and he needs the COs to get the DSER takeout and, keep it all going. But unfortunately, when you run into stop work orders and you can't, finish the project and it just delays, there does hit a point where your lender just doesn't want to keep approving your extensions. So those are definitely red flags to avoid. So, knowing the subdivision timeline, knowing the permit timeline, knowing all that up front can definitely help you. I do want to just make another note to please, chime in with the questions. Feel free to ask questions at any point, and then we'll just bring that up because it is important that this is interactive and that when questions do arise for you guys that you're asking them, so that we could hit them in the moment as well.
So
Absolutely,
Janine, to
absolutely.
add to that,
Love that. Love that. Circle back to like the I think like the concern that you brought it up is very like valid, especially like as a lender, we see that a lot. Like because like we're New York based, we see that a lot happening in the winter season. The weather up in New York, it's cold during the winter. So if the ground of construction, let's say they're closing in like November, December time frame, we often facing the problem of like the ground is frozen. It's very difficult to for them like to dig up the foundation to build a foundation
Yeah.
when the ground is
Or the
frozen.
workers just simply don't wanna work in below
Exactly.
0-degree weather with snow on the
Delaying
ground
the
and you can't really
whole
get
We dealt with that with our 8
project.
lot subdivision, Kayon. We literally had to stop
Mhm.
construction for 5 months this winter. I could not get
Yeah,
any utilities
we
to the ground.
we
I
do
couldn't
that
put any foundations in.
Mhm.
So we had to go to our lender and say, our lender actually asked us, he goes, "Guys, you haven't pulled any draws in 5 months. You know, what's going on? You're getting us worried." And we said, it was a lender out of California. And we said, "Guys, we can't draw because I can't get foundations in. And I need my base paving done in my subdivision in order to get foundations in. But the temperatures are too low for me to pour concrete."
Yeah. Yeah, we see that happens. We see
Mhm.
that happen. So we often like advise our board to make sure the time frame does not hit those like winter like frozen period of time to start.
I think it's important for anyone
So
listening that
Esteban's asking how many ground up projects you guys have done.
This is my first one, that I've done. I just got into real estate about a year and a half ago as a real estate agent, so this is my first duplex that I've built from ground up, and I have 2 more already under contract to be started building.
congrats, that's amazing. We have currently
Thank
Yeah.
you.
30 we have actively 30 single family homes we're building. I have about 800 townhomes under approvals with national home builders, and we've built around 25 active projects. We're we're growing pretty rapidly in New Jersey. So if you have any questions about ground up, I'd love to help, especially China. I know doing your first deal's a learning lesson, and there's so many curves that no matter how
Yes.
many projects we do, I feel like we're still learning. There's always more to learn, and that's why your network is so important. So you can lean on your group and ask people questions and build those relationships.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like that's key. I love meeting people that know way more than me, right? And have been doing this longer than me. For example, my builder, he's been doing this for 24 years. So that's why I chose him as the builder because I know that I can shadow him for builds that are not even my builds, maybe other investors, and I can just ask questions, write them down, go home, study them. So I'm really big on get the information, go home and do my homework and come back with more questions. And that's with any industry. I just feel like when you are obsessed with what you're looking to learn, you eventually also attract those people like Kaya and Nicole and things
Yeah.
of that nature, just because, you're so deep in it and you want to learn everything you possibly can and you don't know who you'll learn from or who you'll need in this industry. So I don't feel like one person is that I've met I don't need or I won't need going forward. So super excited about
Love
it.
So
that.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Very well spoken, China, because I got that energy from you the first time I met you. And it's like, it's a big part of it, right? Finding the energy
Yeah.
to who you can do deals with and like, partnering up and collaboration. And it's not like you went into your first build blindly. You actually did it strategically and went with someone that was a good partner to have. So love
Absolutely.
that. So there's more questions coming in. Sydney was asking um, what it's like to be a woman in real estate, especially in the construction builder space. It's mostly primarily men, I'm sure, especially on site when you're boots on the ground. Do you have any perspective on that being a woman in the space?
yeah, I mean, I I love that question because I answer it very honestly. It's not easy. I'm also young, so I started in the industry when I was 17 me for 10 years. And I've grown and learned, and I didn't come from a family business. I actually threw myself into it. And I only work with men. I'm the only woman in the office. My partners are men. My contractors are men. The only women I really work with is my title company, sometimes commercial brokers, and occasionally realtors, which also in my area are men. I would say that you are you are often underestimated. You're constantly questioned. And from my experience, obviously, there's a huge age gap as well as experience and financial gap because most men in the industry come from that world. And what I would say to any woman who's entering the industry or who wants to be in this industry is you better know your shit, excuse my language. I think that the what sets you apart is educating yourself, asking questions, and not being scared to mess up and to learn. Because if you walk into that room with men, I don't care how old they are, but you are smart and you know what you're talking about, you will be respected. And I think your reputation is everything, how you carry yourself, how you communicate, and just making sure you let them know you mean business. I think as a woman, it's so
Love that.
easy to struggle to be a feminine woman and be in the industry and not give the wrong signals while also showing you mean business, take me serious. And you just gotta walk into every room knowing that there's room to learn, but also knowing your worth and your value. I think that's been my experience, is making sure that I know what I'm talking about, that hold very strict boundaries with the men that I work with, and being confident is really important.
Love your energy,
Yes,
Nicole.
I'm here for it. I love everything. I was like, yes, cheering in my mind. I love that.
Yeah, we always seen men in the industry and women is kind of like on the side, but we as a woman in the industry, we know what we're talking about. We can step out and speak in front a giant group of men with confidence.
Listen,
That's
I say
very
we're women, we're mothers, we struggle and balance 15 different things. You think I can't balance 15 different men on a site? It's the same thing.
I
it is.
agree.
It is.
That's
Love that.
hilarious. Okay, there are some questions coming in about how to get approved for ground up financing. So Kion, I'll kind of let you take that away. One question is, what does a lender want to see from a potential developer to decide if they want to work with you?
Yeah. Um, Several perspective that we are looking at. So first of all, of course, like we need to understand if the project is profitable. That's the number one key that we're gonna look at. So let's say if you're getting a project, you invest 75% of the cost and you sell it 100%. We have a 25% margin here. That's the key. We love that. We love that 25% margin. But besides that, we do wanted to understand if our borrower is experienced enough, they have any like supporting track record to support like their experience. Either they are experienced in the stabilized investment property or they've done like a couple of the ground up construction before. And also we wanted to look at like, of course, the budget. Are they reasonable? Are they making any sense? We wanted to like chime in all the perspective when we look at the deal and make sure the deal has profit. And we wanted to make sure the borrower is completing the project on like a timely basis. We don't want to like keep extending the loans for them. And if they fall, what are they gonna do? We definitely don't want that happen. So we want to ensure that. Mm, mm, Another thing we wanted to look at is like we wanted to make sure like they have like enough like reserve at the back pocket. So if anything, usually when we fund it on stage and oftentimes like they have to come like some out of pocket money upfront. So we want to like take that into consideration.
Yeah, love
Can I
that.
add to that, Janine?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
From a builder's perspective, and if there are any who want to be builders here develop, I think it's important to understand how banks look at things, right? And as Kyan was just saying, they have a specific way that they view files, the same way Janine's going to view a file. You want to make sure that you're as organized as possible because you have to look at a bank and a broker as you're building a relationship. And if they see that you're organized, they're going to go out to bat for you. You're not speaking to the fund, you're speaking to a representative of the bank or the broker who's representing you to different banks. So when you build a package that you're going to present to the bank, experience. So they're always going to ask, how many projects have you done of this size? What I always recommend doing, and this is kind of a cheat sheet, is I do a Dropbox that I can share that link with my lender.
Love it.
And that first folder in there is your corp documents. They're going to ask for these things every single time. Corp documents, your operating agreement, your certificate of formation, your EIN number for that property you're getting a loan on. Second folder's experience. You want to show at least, depending on the file, let's say five different forms of experience. In order to prove that experience, you're going to want to see a HUD and see that your name was on that HUD. If that HUD was under an entity, you then need to go back in those corp docs, provide all those corp docs for that entity. They need to be able to prove that you were on that HUD. So that's your experience file. Then you have your performa that you're providing them. You have to learn how to underwrite. In that underwriting, you want your soft costs broken up. You want your hard costs, including your site work if there is any. You want a contingency in there. Most banks are going to want a 10% contingency. If your 10% contingency kills your deal, what you can do is tell the lender that 10%, I'm going to take it out of my hard costs instead, shorten my hard costs, and that 10% is going to fit into that hard cost number. And you'll be able to play with that. Hopefully, they'll take that. They might not take that, but you always want a contingency in there. And then, so you have your corp documents, you have your experience, you have your performa. You're going to want an appraisal. You're going to speak to your bank. Always ask your bank, hey, am I able to choose my own appraiser? Or, do you guys choose? What are some other things? Your plans, your site plans, your permits, all of your documents for the project. So when you send that file to the bank, everything is there. From there, you don't get a term sheet that has a ton of contingencies where you're saying, oh no, I can't satisfy that. When the bank sends you the term sheet, the bank's like, listen, I have everything in that folder. I think I can actually execute it. Rather than getting a term sheet that they can't execute on because you don't have all of the documents. So I think it's really important to make sure as a developer and builder that you're organized so that you can kind of move that process along.
Yes. I will just
So
bounce off
take
of that and say
a
the
perfect
documentation and the
perfect
preparation
floor.
is very, very important. You could tell Nicole has been through the process of borrowing money from different banks multiple times, because the worst thing you want too is to tell a lender that, hey, I've
Hey,
done 3 round ups, but you
ups, but you
then can't verify that. And when she's saying
keep
like we
saying
want to
like
see HUD and title, you having that like that you were on the title and you were the investor on the property and you bought that property, keeping that
keeping that
documentation
document.
is very key. And you should be bringing out your track record, meaning, when you purchased it, having the date you purchased it for, how much rehab you put into the property, what you sold the property for. Having all that data out on a track record is very important too. So staying organized throughout the process and building your resume. It's really just building yourself up to make yourself see that, this is someone who's borrowed money before and they've repaid before and they're responsible and we want to back them. And then that's how, when you get backed by capital, that's how you're able to move and develop properties and really branch out and scale at the speed that Nicole's rapidly growing at as well.
Stating you don't want to over promise and then you're under delivering and now it's not going to work out. So you don't want to go to a bank and tell them, I have all this experience, this is everything, this is the capital I have, and then they send you a term sheet and now you can't execute it because you don't have all the documents they're going to need. And obviously speed is key, right? We always go to banks and we say, I need to close in 2 weeks, I need to close in 3 weeks. Well, rather than waiting to give them everything, just give it to them up front. So they have that file, they could start working on it with their underwriting team. And another thing I always ask for up front is their draw schedule template. So if you have a draw schedule template, send it over to me so I could get it filled out so that I can figure out how my draws are going to work, with your bank. And do they service loans in-house? How long does it take for them to do a draw inspection? Because time is money, right? If they don't service it in-house and you're working with the broker, how long does that turnaround take? Those are questions you want to ask a bank.
Love it.
Absolutely.
So there's some more questions rolling in. Are there ways for beginner investors to get qualified for ground up construction, or do they always need like for like experience?
Yeah,
So
for me, when I
let me
had mine, I don't have any experience, right? So being able to partner with a builder that's turnkey, that was able to come on the loan with me as well as I'm on the HUD was really important because I don't have that experience as a new investor, where I can show that I've done a fix and flip or I've done gut renovations. So getting a hard money loan by myself wasn't an option. Being able to partner with a builder that does have 24 years of experience or even has at least 3 to 5 built underneath their belt, and come on the loan with me as experience. I can still go on for, credit and things of that nature, but I needed that experience as well to be able to be on this HUD and have my first one under my belt. And now when I also have when I'm project managing on other clients' projects, I can also be put on the HUD as long as I'm project managing them and general contracting on them. So that's kind of like a cheat sheet weight that you can kind of get on the HUD statements is if the builder allows you to either get on or can come on your project as experience.
Great example.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, like we have done like several deals like with someone like with absolutely zero experience. They end up like having like the general contractor be able to sign all the notes, partnering with them, and we end up like funding the deals as well. So if there is a way for someone that is brand new to the industry, wanted to start in the ground up construction journey, absolutely, that's a way to do that.
Yeah, and I think you can also, unfortunately, it's just a part of the growing and learning process when you first start. You have to be willing to give away some equity to someone with more experience than you so that they can kind of jump on that loan either. Which you have to understand that person's going to want that equity because if they go on that loan, they're responsible for that. Um, or, speak with a lender, build a relationship, and ask them if you don't have to give up equity if you have some sort of contracting contract or a license that you can show them and say, maybe I didn't build ground up, but I actually was a plumber or I was an electrician or actually was, I was a part of involved in active construction sites as a project manager. See what bank you might be paying a little bit more for the money, but once you get that first one done and the margins are a little bit less, you kind of get to build that track record.
Love it. And then Michelle is asking, what is the best way to find a trusting partner to start ground up construction? So maybe China, you could chime in a little bit
A little
about how you found that partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I found my business partner at an open house that I was having, and he walked in. He was doing his first build down the street and was just kind of going around the neighborhood, seeing other multifamilies that were being built. And I developed that relationship by getting his contact information. But that not only with just him himself, but I also now from social media have other people coming and saying, "Hey, how can I be a partner on this?" or "How can I, partner with you on a build, even if I'm a capital partner?" So sometimes capital partners also don't have to be super involved where it's always 50-50. Some people just want to make an ROI on their money. Like they just want 12%
Yeah.
on whatever they want to give. So, a partner shows up not always as one form, right? It could just be a silent partner. It could be someone that wants 50-50. Maybe they want to be super hands-on and like just as active as you are. So, you can always find people that want to put their money together to be able to invest.
Awesome. Awesome. So another question is, at what point should an investor keep a property on the market before pivoting from selling to refinancing if it's not moving? So Nicole, I think your exit strategy is always to sell after you guys build, but was there ever a point where maybe it wasn't selling, and you were deciding to maybe rent it, or do you just stick to your exit strategy always?
We've always done exits where we sell. Um, I think I personally invested in multifamily myself, and I actually refinanced, took that money out, invested into something else, and then rented out the asset. I think this is a tricky question because one, you have to figure out what your goal is. Why do you have to refinance? Is it because you didn't underwrite the deal initially correctly? Um, or did the market change? It's super important when you're getting into this industry to do a lot of due diligence because so many people are more aggressive than conservative, and I'm a little bit more conservative. Because if you catch yourself in a position where now you need a refinance, you also have additional closing costs with the lender that you wanted to take into account. Um, that the project might not even be as possible, or you might net not as much if you rent it. So it's a structured question is why do you have to refi? But most of our assets are exits. We have had to refi existing construction loans, which has not been fun at all when we were out of term. That completely cut my profits on some deals. Uh, and just keep it pushing. Sometimes you have to take a loss. I don't always recommend refining and then renting it unless there's enough margins because the closing costs can be heavy.
Yes, for sure. Kyan, do you have anything else to add to that question as to at what point should an investor keep a property on the market or pivot to that DSCR loan?
Absolutely. So we often see that like when the market shifts. So a lot of the builder, especially like their experience, they usually build it and then sell it right away. But when the market deteriorating, that they find that like selling the property does not cover what they're expecting, or the margin is just not there yet. So oftentimes like they will switch it to like a rental and keep it as like a long-term investment for a extended period of time until the market shifts back a little bit like better, or the whole scenario change, then, like, they will put it up, like, what was small again. But we do see that a lot when the market shifts.
Yeah, I think to add to that, it just and I might have misspoke, not to defer someone to not do that. You want to just see what your profit's going to be if you refi and go and rent it. You can do that with smaller homes in the sense of if it's 500K and now you could rent it and the income you have, you're still able to produce a profit. The homes we build are $2 million plus. So the mortgage we would carry wouldn't suffice in order for us to rent it where we currently build.
Okay, yeah. Moving on to the next thing is common mistakes. I think we did touch on these a little bit, but maybe our panelists have a little bit more to add. Weak budgeting, unrealistic timelines, poor documentation, overestimating value, wrong team selection, or unclear exit strategy. So we did just talk about a bit of all of this, but maybe Nicole, you could dive in a little bit more as to what happened in those scenarios that you had to, do a loan modification and get another refinance or mid construction refinance to finish the ground up. And if you were to be able to rewind, what would you have done to save yourself there?
Absolutely. So, number one is weak budgeting. It is so much more advantageous to add more capital into a loan and not need to use it when you finish the asset rather than shortening yourself so that the deal looks more um, favorable to a lender. Believe it or not, a lot of lenders won't mind a little bit lesser of a margin if you're honest with them and tell them, hey, I build at 175 a square foot. I'm putting a budget in here for 200 a square foot. I want to protect myself. I'm not sure what might happen. Uh, if you don't use it, you don't use it, but at least you protect yourself. And that has happened with us where we were building during COVID. We prices completely soared and we didn't have enough money in the construction loan. We had to come out of pocket. In a refi scenario, we went in, we built a project, we got stuck during the winter. My term was up. I had to refinance it and get a larger loan, but there wasn't enough meat on the loan in order for me to get a proper refi. So there was a lot of creativity that had to come from the bank. I had to switch banks. Luckily, the appraisals came in a little bit higher, so I was able to squeeze out a little bit more money, but I couldn't really account for the timing. I no longer do 12-month terms. I like to do 18-month terms. 12 months can get a little bit tight in New Jersey. As far as poor documentation and also planning, things that you commonly might not see is you need a good architect. you can have a beautiful design and start building and not realize that a bad architect did not value engineer your construction. So what you thought you were building that was going to be cheaper ended up costing you a lot more money. And wrong team if you don't have the right contractors. We are a GC and we're developers, but we sub out a lot of the trades and specifically our site work trades. And if you don't get site work guys that have enough experience to do your subdivisions, it can cost you money and time. A subdivision that could take you 3 months just to get the road in to build the houses can now take you 6 to 8 months. So those would be my main points. Janine.
Yeah, and I think finding a GC that is referral basis or like China going to events or open houses and meeting people in person and sticking with a network because for, some builders I've had that, ran over their 12-month term have ran into a scenario where GCs even walked from a property. Like they get in an argument over costs or something happens and their GC takes a deposit and
Insurance.
leaves. So
Insurance.
yeah.
Make sure your subs have insurance.
Make sure you have your-
Make sure
But
your subs
you
have
want to
insurance.
avoid these things. And you want to also make sure that, you have your permits, your plans, your team in place. This way, once you get the financing needed, that you're able to hit the ground running and start building that home. Jay's saying I missed a question, so I'm definitely gonna roll up real quick. And okay. So what does the average buyer end up spending above base price if you were buying this as a rental with your own money? What would concern you? Okay. I'm a little confused by that question, to be honest. What does the average buyer end up spending above base price? So I mean, hopefully if you're in the market, you're not buying above the base price. You're actually buying below base price. So
Right.
hopefully you're getting a deal or people that sometimes like finding a loan from like a wholesaler, things like that. But ideally you're not buying above the base price for sure. And yeah, if you're we're talking mostly ground up construction, but if this was for a rental loan, buying above any base price would hurt your DSCR as well. So what Nicole was mentioning earlier, if you're a build to rent person, knowing your DSCR upfront before even building the home, meaning going off the after repair value and then seeing kind of what that DSCR would be and what you could rent it for prior to even building the home. Because if it's not a strong rental market, then maybe your exit strategy is to sell. So you always want to know your exit strategy before even starting a project. Um, you should
Absolutely,
definitely know your
absolutely.
endpoint.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are wrapping up a little bit. I do would love for Nicole, Cayenne, and China to drop their name and email one last time in this chat. I did post our SheFunds WhatsApp Academy group. This is a fun WhatsApp group chat that is just open community. As I mentioned, this community is for you guys to learn and grow. So it's nice that, everyone chimes in there. Sometimes I see someone asking for a real estate attorney. Hey, I need a title person. Hey, I need this. It's just a network of women in real estate learning and growing together. If you need a realtor in Houston, you got China. If you need a lender, SNCap with Cayenne. Ask Nicole some more questions about
Yes,
her
I'm always here.
scaling. And if you do you build for other people or are you just building for you guys?
We just build for ourselves, but I'm always a resource for people starting to build for themselves or having questions about the cost. What should things cost? If you guys have any vendors that you need connections with, I'm always open to share. I also have a title company and my title license if you ever need title or need help with that. I'm
Awesome. So you
always
can
willing
definitely
to
join
help.
the WhatsApp group too, Nicole. I know you're on WhatsApp because we were texting on there. So there's one last question. How much do local appraisal values impact what you should invest in a project? And they they really impact everything. But Kyan, yeah, if you want to take that one, I see you laughing.
Yeah, so we require appraisal on every single project. We need to look at the value of through the appraisal. So appraisal report is one of the key point when we deciding like whether we're gonna fund the project or not. So absolutely make sure you do enough research, you research on the comps to compare the market before you step in to the project.
Yeah, it's very important. So I know there are some lenders that will restructure your deal to fit and make it profitable. But if your ARV doesn't come back profitable, there are some lenders that just won't lend on the deal at all. So you definitely want to make sure that when you're providing numbers to your lender that you're running those comps yourself. To give you a little tip, comparable is typically within a 2 mile radius and something that's been sold within the last 12 months. So you could run comps yourself, or you could, ask a realtor in your area. Any realtor should be able to help you run comps or should know. So definitely leverage the people around you and leverage some networking and ask questions and be bold. So you would rather be over prepared than underprepared, and make sure you're going into something profitable.
Mhm.
No, you could talk about anything. Awesome. And someone's asking about how to get these templates and start collecting these documents. So an LLC, if you don't have one already, you just file with your state, and you could get all those documents from the state. And then I'm sure Cayenne left her email, and I I do as well, but have a track record template to send you. And I think those two things would be the most important to make sure you're tracking your deals that you do, because that's going to be a lender's first question is, hey, can you send over your track record?
Yeah.
Because we want to see the experience, and that's very important to have together. And like we said, if you have the HUDs or CDs or whatever your closing document was, for when you've done those previous projects, that's important as well. I do know some more questions are rolling in, but I do want to save everyone's time and make sure that everyone, follows SheFunds Academy. We do monthly webinars for free, and I want to thank our panelists so much. And feel free to reach out to them. Join the WhatsApp community. I could push the questions over to that WhatsApp community for everyone to stay interactive. And I appreciate Nicole, Kyan, and China. You ladies are an inspiration, and I love seeing you guys win in this industry and being connected to you all. And yes, have a wonderful Wednesday and be in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It was awesome.
Bye.
Thank you.